Chris, welcome to the Unemployment Diaries. I am so excited to have you here.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I've been waiting for this with bated breath for a long time, so I'm glad it's finally happening.
I am so glad we've been able to make it work. And I remember actually from our first conversation when you were introducing yourself, you told me that you were at the intersection in your work of like innovation, futurism, and I think philosophy. How do those three worlds that are fairly distinct come together for you?
Well, I've been in the innovation world for a really long time, and I've most recently actually thrown that term out because it's become completely, I don't know, meaningless, I guess you could say. Many of the organizations that I work with, it sounds great, but it never actually happens. So I figured let's just step out of that completely, and I've gone back to my roots, which are technology. So the intersection is technology, philosophy, and the future. And I've always been interested in the future. That was one of my earliest memories is reading all this science fiction when I was a kid and going, oh, I'd love to live in that kind of world. I'd love to build that kind of world. And that's what led me to just keep thinking about the future. So that led me into technology because, of course, technology was the future at the time. Everything is so cool, and I'm a huge Star Trek fan, and that's what got me into it in a big way. And in fact, I would argue that probably most of the technology we're seeing today was inspired by science fiction. People would read something when they were a kid or watch something, and go, "That's really cool. Maybe we can figure out how to build that," right? And the intersection is due to the fact that I've been in technology for a really long time. And in the end, I found it kind of boring, right? It's really not all that interesting by itself as technology. And there's a lot of techies who are super into technology and they think this is the best thing ever. And they're always into the newest thing and the latest thing and whatever. And I always thought that the most interesting part was not the technology itself, but how it interacts with humanity, how it interacts with people. And that's where the philosophy piece comes in. So I've always been interested in the future. I've always been interested in philosophy. I'm actually a philosophy major, believe it or not. And my career has been in technology. So pull all those three together, and that's where the intersection of where my podcast is. And some of my other podcasts sort of riff off of that as well.
Star Trek. I never got into Star Trek for whatever reason, and I feel like I've been missing out and I have some watching to do.
Well, the coolest thing about it is that I find that especially the original series, maybe Next Generation, it's inspirational. So it portrays a future, a optimistic post-scarcity time where we don't have to worry about people scrabbling all over each other in competition for a limited amount of resources. Resources are unlimited. So if we project it into the future where resources are completely unlimited and could just be created out of nothing, what would people do? Basically, instead of working to make money, they would work to fulfill their life's work, whatever they want to do. So they'd be able to fulfill their desires without having to scrabble for cash. That kind of future, I think, appeals to a lot of people, and they'd love to live in that type of future. Do I could build that kind of future? So it drove a lot of people into that technology industry to say, let's see if we can figure out how to build that future. And that's what I like it the most about this kind of stuff, especially the optimistic science fiction, which we have less and less of nowadays, is that if you can create this vision of the future, and at that moment, the technology does not exist. It doesn't exist at all. But the moment you put it out into the world and it's in the ether, it's in the content sphere out there, somebody somewhere, maybe 10, 20, 30, 40 years down the road will read it or watch it and go, wow, maybe we can build that today. So it's inspirational to the future and future generations.
Interesting. I never thought of the connection between sci-fi and this utopia that could exist in the future. But
Exactly.
that makes a lot of sense. And also thinking about it as a way to achieve or align with your purpose. And actually, you wrote an article on Substack where you advocated for companies needing a chief philosophy officer.
Yeah, that's right.
And I guess my question to you is why would companies need a chief philosophy officer and not a chief comms officer and not a chief marketing officer or not a chief human resources officer? What is the gap that a chief philosophy officer would fill, and why now?
Well, they need all those other things too. The problem is that there really is no one in the organization. And if you think about it, it should probably be the CEO's role to do this, to look at what the company's doing from an ethical and moral standpoint. Because if part of philosophy is looking at ethics and morals, right? What is your morality frame? What is your ethical framework? And many companies sort of go off the rails thinking about the profit motive and nothing else, and not how it affects humans, how it changes people, because everything that they do affects their employees, their customers, their prospective customers. Everything that they do affects that. And there's really no centralized role. If you consider how important ethics should be to an organization, there really is no centralized role that looks at it. So that's why I'm saying a chief philosophy officer should be looking at those types of actions, looking forward to what the company's doing, and advise the rest of the senior management that this is what the company should be doing and this is what the company shouldn't be doing based on an ethical framework that it has. Because right now, there isn't a single point of contact who will do that in an organization.
Right. So, keeping in mind the ethics, then, how does one manage what might be an ethical objective and or an ethical constraint versus a profit-driven objective?
Well, you would look at it more holistically, right? Because this is the one thing. I mean, I'm actually a libertarian, so I totally understand how companies work, and that's kind of a misnomer. People believe that organizations exist for more than just what they exist for. Profit profit generating corporations, profit generating organizations are there to generate profits. That is the reason they exist. And there's all sorts of people around that who go, well, no, they're here to help people get work or improve the community or improve the environment or fight climate change or all these other ancillary benefits that you'd think of. But those are always ancillary because the profit margin, the profit motive is the bottom line. And the problem is that when the profit motive is the bottom line, then you get all sorts of interesting things that never see the light because there's no profit to them. And I've seen this before in innovation, especially, is that we have innovation sessions where you generate thousands of amazing ideas, but almost all of them, 99% of them, are discarded because none of them are profitable. Zero of them, they might delight the customers, they may provide an amazing service, they might be incredible for the customer or for the prospective customer or for the world. But, unless it has a profit motive, it's thrown out. So somebody like a chief philosophy officer might identify those and go, listen, this is actually really good for our customers. And it might not be as profitable as these other ideas, but if it provides this much of a benefit to humanity or to our organizations or to the world, then maybe we should give it more importance than what you're doing with it, which is basically throwing it out. So we need to take a look at it from less of a profitability edge and look at it more of like, how is this going to benefit humanity and the world? So that's something that a chief philosophy officer would be doing as well. They would be looking at it from that lens, not necessarily profitable lens, because a lot of these organizations, they're awash in profits. They've got plenty of profitable products. They're doing pretty well. And they just need to look at things that are outside of that to see how they could improve the world in general as well.
It's a more comprehensive list of outcomes. And I've
Exactly.
always been interested in this. I studied social innovation and entrepreneurship and where profit and purpose kind of intersect. And it's an interesting discussion these days as I find the conversation around purpose keeps coming up. It comes up at a corporate level in terms of the narrative and in terms of how do we tell our story as a brand and as a company. But then it also comes up at the individual level of what is my purpose? Does my purpose align with a company? And then outside of a corporate environment, what am I doing here on this planet? And my question then is, has the idea of purpose changed, or is it just the environment that's changed?
Well, I think there's two camps. There's people who have a purpose, who know what their purpose is in life, and they drive towards it. And sometimes they can't drive towards it in their working life because it doesn't align with whatever the corporation is that they're working for, or aligns with a money-making venture, right? So I could love a particular thing and it's my purpose in life, but I can't make any money doing it. So I do some job and I do this as a hobby or not at all. Or I always think of it as this is my purpose that I'm going to get to at some point when I have enough money and free time to get to it, right? And then there's others who don't know what their purpose in life is. And in fact, they're still seeking what their purpose is. And I think what's happening is that there's this great reconfiguration occurring right now, especially with AI, where people are sort of sitting back and thinking to themselves, am I aligned? Is my work aligned with my purpose? Is my work aligned with what I really want to do in life? And most of the time it's not. I mean, if you have that great, it's like a Venn diagram. It's like, here's what I really want to do, and here's what I'm doing right now. It's like, how often do these overlap? If they don't overlap, then you're working either against or orthogonal to your purpose, right? Or you're spending a lot of time doing things that you don't really want to do, and just to survive in the world. So I think that is sort of resurfacing again, because people are finding that they're looking at their jobs and they're looking at their lives and they're thinking, is this really aligned with what I really want to do? And the thing is that there's technologies and systems and networks that are coming into play that allow people to express their purpose more easily, and in some cases actually make money off of expressing their purpose as well. So it makes them happier overall, because they're not spending their efforts driving to something that doesn't align with their purpose. They're spending their efforts driving to something that does align with their purpose. So I don't know if that answers your question, but
Yeah, what's an example of one of those advances that we've made that have allowed people to work towards their purpose and make money doing it?
a good example of it was actually Substack, because we are in a weird place. Actually, humanity is kind of a weird place, period. We tend to compensate horrible, burdensome work higher than uplifting, wonderful work, right? So art is uplifting. It just touches the soul in a way, right? And artists get paid peanuts. Whereas if you're sitting there doing an Excel spreadsheet for 8 hours a day, which is a burdensome, horrible job, well, apologies to people who love that kind of stuff, that is highly compensated. So it's kind of weird. We have this situation where the terrible stuff that AI could do is highly compensated, but the stuff that AI can't really do very well is lowly compensated. So we really need to have some reconfiguration where we have systems and networks in place that take that purpose-driven work and monetize it in some way. And Substack is one place where you can see that sort of monetization happening. It's not perfect by all means, because we actually need a cultural mind shift that values this kind of art higher than the burdensome work. And that will happen when we give AI the burdensome work and we allow humans to do the creative work.
That makes me think of one of the questions you asked, which was, how do we respectfully use both AI and humans to build for the betterment of humanity? Is that what you mean by the respectfully part?
Right.
Like respect to capacity or respect to purpose? Or did you mean
It
something
is
else?
it is with respect to which jobs are best suited for which entity, I guess you could say. See, we're kind of in a weird place right now where we have AI doing creative work and we have humans doing AI work. So when I talk about respectfully, I mean, let's respect the big human creative brain and give the big human creative brain the creative work to do. And then let's give the AI the grunt work that the humans shouldn't be doing. I say this every now and then, and people are shocked, is that if AI is going to take your job, then you should let AI take your job, because it's a job that AI can do. So if it's a job that AI can do, then you shouldn't be doing it. As a human being, you should not be doing that job. There's better jobs for you. Let the AI take your job and go get a better job. The problem is we're in a space where if you let the AI take your job, then there are no better jobs yet. So we need to create those jobs that are specifically for human beings that AI cannot do, and give those jobs to humans. And they should be well compensated jobs, because humans are creating things that for humans that should be higher compensation. Now, that's problematic for some people, because they're like, but I like this job because it's really easy for me to push this cog from point A to point B, point A to point B. I guess it's no effort for me. I get paid for no effort. And it's like, no, that's not how it should work. You should be using your big human brain to create something of value for other humans and let the machines handle all that work that's not really fit for human beings.
And what if you don't know how to create anything else of value? So if what you know is just a certain skill set, I'll use software engineering as an example. Let's just assume AI is going to take over most of those roles. I'm not saying that's going to happen. Please, someone hire all the software engineers. But there is likely a situation where some level of coding will be taken over by the more efficient, more well-rounded AI capacity. So now, how do you identify a new skill set? And what do you do while you're developing that skill set to get this other job or to become a creator of some sort?
Well, see, that's the interesting thing is that there are so many people who feel that they're not creative, that they don't have the ability to do these other things. But I believe that everyone is creative. Everyone has the ability to do other things. Everyone has the ability to touch the purpose that they were born to do. But it's been sublimated underneath. I mean, we're all kids. We all played. We all had fun. We all did things that we liked. And we're just not doing them anymore because now we have to work. We have to be adults, right? And we just have to get in touch with that again. Get in touch with that piece of us which is doing the creative work, getting in touch with the piece of us that we enjoy doing. So it's kind of like, say somebody loves fishing, right? So they love fishing. They think fishing is amazing. Every moment of their spare time, they go fish, right? But nobody can pay them to fish, right? They can't be paid to fish. But what if that person started a Substack all about fishing, talking about the different kinds of tackles, talking about the different kinds of rods, talking about the different kinds of fish, like just a really extensive site which talked about their love of fishing. And then other people would be able to see that and go, "Whoa, this is interesting. Anybody else who's interested in fishing might be able to partake of their knowledge." So here's somebody taking something that's a hobby, their love, their creative, maybe this is their purpose in life is to teach people how to fish or teach people about fishing. The network and there's a network in place that allows them to do that. And if he sets it up properly, then he might be able to shift some of the burden from working from the monetary burden from his job to his fishing newsletter or whatever. So that's what I'm trying to say is that everyone has the capacity to do this other creative work. We just have never had systems in place to monetize this creative work. And now that we're starting to see just the beginnings of these systems to monetize the work, and they're not perfect yet, because like I said, we need that cultural change where somebody goes, you know what, I will pay for for access to this fishing newsletter. Because right now we expect the content to be free or very inexpensive. And we need to adjust that to the point where like, you know what? That's worth something to me. That's worth something to me. And I'll be willing to pay it.
So as someone who is working as a creator, who is also working in a corporate environment, so in kind of the more traditional model, do you think there is now space for this creator economy?
There is, but it's still very difficult because we do need to have that shift is starting to happen. But all of these shifts, I like to say everything takes longer than you think because everything does take longer than you think. In fact, if you look at the internet and its evolution over time, we've had blogs, we've had podcasts, we've had video, and all of these different mediums have had the exact same sort of thing happen to them. We've had people who've created free ones and then they've been able to monetize them. But then there's the great large number of them that are not monetized. And a lot of them is because the owners don't want to monetize them, or it's too difficult for them to monetize, or there's some overarching reason why they don't want to monetize it. And we don't really have the systems in place, or we're starting to see systems in place now where people can monetize this type of creation. But the flip side of that is that we still haven't taught people that there's value in this type of creation. People still have the mindset that this stuff should be available for free, right? And if we get to that, if we can shift that mindset, then we'll see more of that happening. And the way to shift that mindset is to get creators to stop giving away stuff for free, because if they devalue it by giving it away. And there's just so much. Do you remember the statement, information wants to be free? I think what happened is that people took that to heart and they figured that, well, since there is no cost to the delivery mechanism, right? If I'm a musician and I create an album, I have to have the recording company put it on an album for me, and they sell that physical object. And they sell that physical object for around $15, $20 or whatever they charge for it. People are willing to buy that physical object at $15. But when I put my tracks on MP3 and I sell them to you on the internet, people are like, oh, I'll give you like 5 cents. Like, what are you talking about? It's like, just because it's not a physical object, you're going to give me a fraction of the price that you would because it's not a physical object. So we need to sort of break away from that and have creators pricing their stuff at the value that it should be at, as opposed to this system that we are locked into right now. But we need other systems to sort of break ourselves out of these paradigms. I never thought I was going to use that word, but I did.
P word?
Yes, I
Uh,
haven't used that in years, so you're lucky. You
as
one
someone who
paradigm per
works
decade.
in technology or just in any corporate environment, I feel like there are certain buzzwords that just kind of give you immediate acid reflux.
Yeah,
And I think that's one of them. It gets overused.
only get one paradigm per decade, and you got my paradigm. So I no more paradigms until the 2030s.
No more paradigms. All right, I'll hold you to it. If I see paradigm in any Substack post, you will be hearing from me.
Please,
So
please hold me to that.
to all the aspiring content creators, maybe they have an information that they'd like to share. They have a brand that they want to start. They have a concept that they want to build content around. How do you get started when you don't have the proof that you can do this?
Well, the advice I always give someone who is thinking about doing this is to just do it, basically. The toughest part is starting. And I think the biggest part is getting something out there. There's so much fear of exposing yourself to the world, right? Of being, in fact, a lot of people, it's like, well, I don't want to do this. And I've been through this so many times. It's funny. I had a startup once with a couple of guys here in Silicon Valley, and we had this really cool app that it harvested stuff off social media. So if you were interested in a particular topic, say sailing, you would enter the topic and it would harvest all of these tweets and Facebook posts and everything all about sailing. And then in 24 hours, it would give you a report which told you exactly what was going on in the world of sailing, as people talk about it on social media. And we put this thing together over 6 months. I learned Ruby on Rails to put it together, and we were getting ready to launch it. And just before we launched it, the other founders got cold feet. They said, well, it's not ready yet. Let's not do this. Let's do this. Let's perfect this. Let's change this color. Let's do this, do this. And then this went on for months, and we were starting to lose our window of opportunity. And then eventually one of the founders left, and me and the other founder said, okay, let's get this out the door. I got it out the door, and he was so unhappy with the product that after a week out the door, he said, okay, let's take it down and add more features. And I'm like, we didn't even give it enough time to meet the market, to see if the market even wanted it, or if we got any feedback from the market to say, this is what we need. And I think I've been through that particular thing so many times that really the only solution is to take whatever you have, the roughest draft, especially if it's embarrassing. In fact, if it's still embarrassing, that's the right time to do it. If it's not embarrassing to you anymore, you waited too long. You have to take whatever embarrassing output you've got, and even if it doesn't sound very good, if the lighting's bad or the sound is bad, or you keep saying what but or your phraseology, or you throw you knows in or whatever. I do that all the time. It doesn't matter how bad it is. Put it out there. Put it out there as soon as you possibly can. And then it gets easier. And in fact, the easiest part is just putting it out there time after time after time. So set up a timeline. Say you're going to do it every week, every month, every day, whatever feels comfortable to you. And then just put it out there and just keep putting it out there. And the more you put it out there, the better you will get at it. Trust me. I mean, I've done this for 20 years now, and my first tries were absolutely awful. If I go back and listen to it, I'm like, oh my God,
You cringe
I
a
was
little?
terrible. It was so embarrassing. But luckily, I didn't have any qualms about throwing crap out. And it was early in the podcasting days too. So, I mean, there was a lot of terrible stuff out there. But nowadays we have so much technology to help us create. It's unbelievable. And even if you're embarrassed about putting your face out there, you can have AI create a video of you, or and have 11 Labs read your writing into a video. But yeah, I mean, my advice would be like, go back and find something that you truly love to do, because this is something you're going to be doing a lot, right? And it's something it has to be something you love. And if you love it, then you'll have no trouble doing it. And if you have no trouble doing it, then you can create a lot of it. And then eventually you'll get better at it and better at it. And you'll keep tweaking it and changing it. And you'll get feedback, and you'll take the feedback. You'll listen to the feedback. You can decide, I can do this. I don't have to do this, or I'll pivot, whatever, based on that feedback. But really, the trick is to just get it out there. And eventually you'll look back on yourself and go, wow, this is like way better than it was when I first started. But it takes practice, and it takes doing it. If you want, I can keep going.
No, I love that. And I'm going to recap to make sure I didn't miss any steps. Find something that you love. Leverage technology if you need to make it happen. Be disciplined and stick with your schedule that you're committing to for yourself and for the audience, even if it doesn't exist yet. And then put it out there ASAP, because if you're not embarrassed by your first draft, you launched too late. I love that, by the way. And then just do it. The Unemployment Diaries is now sponsored by Nike.
Wow. That's a great sponsor. Good job.
I know. Just episode 2, 1. I don't know what this will be. No, but seriously, Nike, if you'd like to sponsor, feel free.
That is the toughest part, is the just doing it part.
Yeah. And it's an easy to say, hard to do element, but it seems to be the resounding piece of advice from anyone who's been successful. You have to put yourself out there. There has to be a modicum of risk that you're willing to assume in order to start something new.
Yeah. But even just recording it for yourself, I think it's fine too. It's sort of like, I'm not intending to put this out at all. And this is something I learned. What was it? What's that group that helps you with public speaking? What's the name
Toastmasters?
of that group? Toastmasters. That's right. So I learned this on Toastmasters. They said, just do videos of yourself talking with no intention of putting it on. So if you're thinking about doing a podcast like this, just record a bunch of videos. Just keep record a bunch of videos of you talking and flubbing and putting ehs and ahs and you knows and all that stuff. So it's almost like priming yourself before your first actual episode. Go record 10, 20 videos of yourself speaking, telling your story, doing what you want to do. And then by the time you do the 30th one, maybe it's like, wait a minute, this is pretty good. I think I can publish this one. So just it's like priming the pump, right? Before you actually get it out there. There's nobody saying to you, you have to put out the first thing that you record. It can obviously be the 21st thing you record.
Yeah. But at some point, you have to put something out there.
Absolutely.
Can't get around that piece.
What I like is, I don't know if you can't do this in the podcasting world yet, but in the Amazon KDP world, you can actually set a publishing date. And if you miss the publishing date, it actually bans you from the platform for a year. So I think that's a really good incentive to get your book done on time.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I mean, it reminds me of some of these attention protection apps that are banning us from using our social media. There's one called Opal that I like, and it is really difficult to get around, but it helps me. It provides a constraint so that it's not helping me to do something, it's helping me to not do something. But I guess it's the same principle, is that sometimes those restrictions help to move you in the direction by creating an environment for you to succeed in.
Yeah. See, there's a proper use of technology right there, is using technology to better yourself as a human being.
I like that idea. Thinking of technology as, where is it serving us and where does it become a crutch, or where is it taking away something either morally, philosophically, or even just practically for our own development. And I mean, you must have found a way around all of this, because I think you have 3 different podcasts, 4 newsletters, if I'm counting correctly. Maybe not all
Yeah,
of them as
3.
active, but how do you do all this? Like, and you have a full-time job with one of the largest hospitality companies, if not the largest hospitality company in the world. Are there 4 of you?
No, there's only one. but I just spend a lot of time writing. Basically, just carving out time. I mean, you have to focus. Really focused effort is the way to do it. Is to just say, okay, for this hour, for these 2 hours, I'm just going to sit down and I'm going to write. Just solidly write and peel it out. And of course, I use AI to help me write, like brainstorming and editing. Usually, a lot of the stuff that I've written recently for Substack is actually things that I've written years ago for another blog, which is my original Think Future blog. And a lot of the concepts that I talk about then are the same concepts, but they're just refreshed for today. Like, for example, I wrote one which is coming out in a couple of weeks about the blue collar work. We've always had this weird disparity where white collar work seems more privileged and makes more money than blue collar work, right? But we're going to see with AI, we're going to see sort of that flip. We're going to see AI taking over all the white collar jobs, and people out there clamoring for the blue collar jobs, and those being paid higher than the white collar jobs will be paid. And that's going to happen at some point. We're just not there yet. Although I'm starting to see it happen, because I was talking to a guy on the golf course the other day, and his father was very unhappy with him because he was a software engineer and he wanted his son to become a software engineer, but he decided to go into HVAC instead. And now the son is making as much money as the father at like half his age. But the dad is still unhappy that he didn't become a software engineer. And it's like, wait a minute. It's like you want to go into HVAC nowadays with AI taking software engineering jobs, like you were mentioning earlier. Then those kind of roles are really the ones that are going to be higher compensated. I mean, especially in the Bay Area, it's hard to find a good plumber. It's hard to find a good mechanic. It's hard to find a good human being who does that kind of physical work, which is not going to be taken away from it by AI in a long time, I'm thinking.
Maybe in the future you'll be discouraged from having a traditional corporate job, and they'll say, well,
Well, you
why do you
will.
want to make
You will.
$100,000 a year when you can make 1 million on your own time sitting on a beach in Bali?
Well, you see, it's like the best of times and the worst of times when it comes to that, because we have the ability now to do just that. You could turn around and create a podcast in your basement and boom, become incredibly successful. But at the same time, that ladder is fraught with all sorts of other barriers that weren't there before. So this is what happens with every single one of these things, is that it starts off as a brand new concept. So blogging started off as a brand new concept. Podcasting started off as a brand new concept. YouTube started off as a brand new concept that it democratized content creation. So if you think about times before the internet, there was a tiny little elite that was able to communicate to people. But then when the internet came along, then you had this explosion or democratization of content creation to just the regular person on the street. So anyone could start a blog, anyone could start a podcast, anyone could start a video. But by the same token, when this thing exploded, there was all this great content being created, but there was no way to figure out how to connect the consumer of the content with the creator of the content. So it was total Wild West out there. You would just come across, and the search engines did that initial connection, right? I would say, show me a fishing blog, and it would go find some fishing blogs, and it would read the fishing blogs. And since then, what's happened is that these moderating platforms are the ones that have become the marketplace. So if you want to be seen, you now need to perform for the moderating platforms, and the moderating platforms are all created algorithmically. So the moderating platforms are the ones that decide whether or not your stuff is going to be shown to everybody else. When the initial phases of these things, blogs, podcasts, etc., was a lot easier to get to fringe, interesting, weird stuff, because you didn't have to support an algorithm. You didn't have to use the algorithm to get through to it. It's kind of like on Facebook, right? When Facebook first started, if you only had 150 friends or less, then it was easy for you to show your content to all of your 150 friends. And then as soon as you got more than 150 friends, it's almost impossible for all your content to be shown. So Facebook had to make decisions on what content to show. So the algorithm had to step in, and now it's the one that's determining our visibility to the rest of the world. So the problem is that all of these platforms have so much content to deal with, and they're trying to do a good job of matching the content creator with the reader, but it's not perfect. And we ended up in a situation where instead of the elite deciding what's actually going to go out there, we have these algorithms deciding what's going to go out there. So it's kind of recreating the same type of problem, except you don't have to convince an editor. Back in the day, I'm a prospective author. I have to go convince an editor at a publishing house publish my book. Now it's like I'm a prospective author. I have to convince Google to show my book to people who are interested in it. I have to convince Substack to show my Substack to people who are interested in it. So we've traded one master for another master because Facebook's only going to show the stuff that works for them, that brings them more money, as opposed to the interesting content creator, which they might not be making any money out of.
So it goes back to what are we assigning value and utility to? And on that topic, if you could go back 10, 20 years, whatever age you think it would be useful to receive some advice from your current self, what advice would you give your younger self?
I would say put your stuff out there, even while it's embarrassing. When I first started podcasting in 2005, I started thinking to myself, you know what? I'm just going to do this for myself because I kind of had the revelation that if you think about it for a second, where's the miracle? Is the miracle in the consumption or is the miracle in the creation? I think the miracle is in the creation. So when you create something, that's a miracle. When you consume something somebody else has created, that's great, but it's not the miracle. The miracle is in the creation. So in the creating of the thing, that's where the real human, amazing human stuff comes from. So the fact that no one's reading it doesn't matter. A lot of writers, they beat themselves up. Oh, I don't have any subscribers, or no one's reading my stuff, or I have no likes on my notes. It's like, who cares? You created something. That's amazing. And that's the thing you should be proud of, is that you actually went and created something. And you should be doubly proud the fact that you actually were confident enough to put it out there so that somebody might be interested in consuming it.
That goes back to everything you're saying about how we assign value. What is important to humanity? What is important to the individual? What is important to society at large? It goes back to the concept of creation. And as we start to move towards this creator economy or a world where personal brands can exist, where the individual has a voice, I think that's a really powerful message. Chris, to wrap things up, if people want to find you, which I think they absolutely will want to find you, where can they find you?
Well, many places, but my main spot is thinkfuture.com or thinkfuture.substack.com. So that's my main podcast slash newsletter. And I also have another one called Nomads 50 Plus.substack.com, which is targeted specifically to digital nomads. And it's a YouTube channel and podcast where I interview digital nomads over the age of 50 to help aspiring digital nomads get into the life of becoming a digital nomad. And I've got a couple of other things in the works too. I'm writing a book right now about a concept that's helped me throughout my life. And I should be launching it early in 2026 as well. So I have a bunch of other books on Amazon as well, but this is my latest opus.
That's amazing. I still am not convinced. I think you found a way to leverage all of your skills and technology to create for Chris's, or you have your own personal LLM that creates other worlds for you in parallel. And
I
now I'm
wish.
veering into the Star Trek land that I know nothing about. um, Chris, thank you so much. Thank you to our sponsor, Nike, for letting us know that we should just do it.
Good job getting that sponsor. Well done.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, this is the rehearsing. It's the mental rehearsing. It's the priming that you were talking about. I took your advice to heart. Chris, thank
Excellent.
you so much.
Thank you.